Hey everyone, and welcome to Building Resilient Systems, a practical guide to microservices adoption, Team Lead Edition. I'm truly glad you're here, because if you're leading a development team today, you're constantly navigating the tension between delivering features quickly, maintaining high quality, and ensuring your systems are robust for the long haul. In this first scene, we're going to demystify microservices, not just what they are, but why they matter specifically from your perspective as a team lead. At its core, a microservice architecture structures an application as a collection of loosely coupled, independently deployable services. Each service is developed, deployed, and managed by small, autonomous teams, ideally owning a distinct business capability. Think of each as a specialized module, with its own code base, its own data store, and clear operational responsibilities. It's a shift from a monolithic behemoth to a fleet of specialized units. Now, why does this matter for your team? You might be thinking, isn't this just more complexity and overhead?
Well, the strategic value here, particularly for empowering your engineers, is immense. By breaking down a large, monolithic application into smaller, manageable services, you empower your teams. Each team gains increased autonomy, able to make independent technical decisions for their service, deploy features more frequently, and innovate without waiting on other teams or wrestling with a giant shared codebase. This is precisely where our central analogy really shines. Picture a moment where your team is orchestrating a skilled project team, where each member owns a distinct, specialized module. Just like a symphony conductor leads individual musicians, each playing their part perfectly, a great team lead guides these independent service teams towards a shared objective. I've seen teams dramatically increase their development velocity, moving from monthly deployments to multiple times a day, simply by giving them this focused ownership and independence. Beyond just velocity and team morale, microservices are a game changer for overall system resilience. When one small service experiences an issue or fails, the entire application doesn't necessarily collapse. You can isolate failures, ensuring your core business functions remain operational, which is paramount for any critical system. This modularity also allows for easier maintenance and, critically, future adaptability. Need to scale a specific part of your system because of high demand?
You scale just that particular service, not the entire application. Optimizing resource use.
Want to try a new technology or framework for a new feature?
You can safely experiment within a single service without re-architecting everything that's already working. It's about building systems that can bend, not break, and evolve without constant, painful refactoring. This approach inherently moves you away from the Saga and operational hellscape concerns some associate with distributed systems. By giving clear boundaries and ownership. Next up, we'll dive into identifying the right problems where microservices actually make sense for your team, and where they might just be over-engineering. Alright, so you understand the potential of microservices. But here's the critical question for any team lead. When do you actually need them? It's not about adopting a trend. It's about solving specific, acute problems. Think about it like this. If your current system isn't causing measurable pain points, rushing to microservices can often introduce unnecessary complexity. The goal isn't just to be modern, but to build resilient, efficient systems that empower your team. Much like a symphony conductor selecting instruments not just for their sound, but for how they contribute to the overall harmony and deliver on the piece's specific demands. You might be thinking, my team is already struggling with our monolith. But is it microservices pain or just general technical debt? That's an excellent question. Let's look for the telltale signs. Is your deployment cycle a stressful, all-hands-on-deck event that takes hours or even days? Are small changes in one module forcing a full regression test across an entire, unrelated application? When every bug fix feels like a high-stakes surgical procedure, you're experiencing the drag of tight coupling and a lack of true independent deployability. In real systems, this shows up when you have a critical feature, let's say a payment processing module, that needs to scale exponentially during peak periods, but it's intertwined with a less critical reporting module that barely sees traffic. Scaling the entire application to accommodate that one surging component is incredibly inefficient and costly. This is where microservices shine. They allow you to isolate and independently scale that high-demand module, that single, specialized musician, without affecting the rest of the orchestra. This focus enables a team member to become a true expert in their specific domain, enhancing both velocity and quality. So before you jump in, it's vital to ask, Are we facing genuinely critical scaling bottlenecks that our current architecture can't handle efficiently? Are our teams consistently blocked by shared codebases, leading to slow delivery and frustration? Is our technology stack so monolithic that adopting new, more efficient tools for specific functionalities is nearly impossible? Identifying these precise problems is your first and most crucial step.
Because microservices are a powerful solution, but only when applied to the right problems. Next, we'll dive into a real-world case study to see how one team navigated these challenges and successfully transitioned to a microservices architecture. Alright, let's pull back the curtain on a real-world scenario. You've heard the theory, but how does it play out when you're actually leading a team through this transformation? Today, I want to walk you through a case study from one of my past teams. A story that I think many of you might find familiar. Our journey began with a classic problem, a monolithic application. It was an absolute beast, handling everything from user authentication to product catalog management. Imagine your development team trying to build a complex symphony, but instead of individual musicians playing specialized instruments, everyone was crowded around one giant, interconnected instrument. Every change, even a minor one, required deploying the entire application, leading to painfully slow release cycles that could stretch to weeks, not days. Dependencies were tangled, developer productivity was plummeting, and frankly, fear of breaking something vital was a constant shadow. We needed a different kind of orchestration.
So our implementation process was deliberate, starting with a crucial question: where's the biggest pain? We adopted a phased approach, beginning with a critical but isolated domain: our notification service. This allowed us to apply the strangler fig pattern, gradually migrating functionality out of the monolith rather than a risky big bang rewrite. You might be thinking, but what about the challenges? Believe me, we faced them. One major hurdle was ensuring data consistency across new services while still relying on shared data in the monolith. In real systems, this shows up when you have a customer table that both your old billing module and your new customer profile microservice need to access, often leading to complex synchronization logic or temporary data duplication. We tackled this with careful event-driven communication and robust idempotent operations, all while trying to maintain clear communication channels within the team, just like a conductor guiding sections of an orchestra to play in harmony. The effort paid off, and the outcomes were measurable and impactful. Our deployment frequency for the new services jumped from bi-weekly to daily, and sometimes multiple times a day. Lead time for changes dropped by over 60%, meaning features reached users much faster. Crucially, team autonomy soared. The notification team could now develop and deploy independently, truly owning their instrument and its distinct sound within our growing symphony. This led to a significant boost in developer morale and system resilience.
Our key learning? Start small, but be utterly ruthless in defining clear service boundaries from day one. That upfront investment is gold. Now, understanding how to define those boundaries is key for your success.
Alright team, after our deep dive into a successful microservices transition, the burning question often becomes, how do we actually start designing these services? The most critical first step, and honestly the one that can make or break your entire microservices journey, is defining your service boundaries correctly. Think of it like this: if you're orchestrating a skilled project team, you wouldn't have two musicians trying to play the same instrument, or a lead guitarist also trying to manage the soundboard simultaneously, right? Each member owns a distinct, specialized module. Similarly, with microservices, we need distinct cohesive units. And for that, we turn to domain-driven design, or DDD. It's about identifying the core business capabilities, what your organization does, and making those capabilities your service boundaries. Not just technical concerns like all user data or all CRUD operations, but meaningful bounded contexts like order management or customer billing. This ensures that each service, much like each musician, has a clear, singular purpose and expertise. It sets your team up for true autonomy, minimizing communication overhead and maximizing focus. Once you have a handle on those boundaries, the next challenge is choosing the right architectural patterns to support them. And believe me, this isn't a one-size-fits-all situation.
You might be thinking, isn't a microservice just a small app?
Well, yes, but when they talk to each other, especially across a distributed system, things get complex fast. This is where patterns like the Saga pattern for distributed transactions come into play, helping you maintain consistency across multiple services without a single, monolithic database. Or event sourcing, which gives you an immutable ledger of all changes, fantastic for auditability and historical analysis. And then there's CQRS, Command Query Responsibility Segregation, where you separate your read and write models, optimizing for performance and scalability. I've seen teams jump headfirst into microservices without considering these patterns, only to find themselves in an operational hellscape, dealing with data inconsistency and debugging nightmares. It's like having your symphony members improvising their parts without a clear score or arrangement. These patterns are your architectural scores, guiding how your services interact, ensuring they collaborate effectively, and prevent that dreaded over-engineering the Reddit audience talks about. They give you tools to manage the inherent complexity, rather than being overwhelmed by it. As a team lead, your role shifts from purely technical to nurturing an environment where these services can thrive. It's not just about drawing lines on a whiteboard. It's about empowering your teams.
This means fostering strong team ownership. If you build it, you run it. Your team becomes the expert conductor and musician for their specific module. Standardize communication protocols through well-defined APIs and contracts, just like agreed-upon musical notation. But perhaps most crucially, implement robust observability from day one. You need to know what's happening inside those distributed systems. Without it, you're flying blind, and that skepticism about operational overhead becomes a painful reality. And remember, this is an evolutionary design process. Don't aim for upfront perfection. Microservices allow for iterative growth. Start small, learn, and adapt. It's about empowering each team to truly own their piece of the orchestra, contributing to a larger, adaptable structure with clear communication and shared objectives. Ultimately, building resilient systems without drowning in complexity. But what about the actual tools and ecosystem that make all this possible for your development teams? We'll dive into that next. Alright, we've laid the groundwork for designing resilient microservices. We've talked about defining clear service boundaries, much like assigning distinct roles to our orchestra members. But even the best design needs the right instruments and tools to bring it to life, right? This is where the enabling ecosystem comes in. The platforms and practices that empower your development teams to build, deploy, and operate microservices effectively and with confidence. It's about ensuring every part of your symphony has the support it needs to perform. First up, let's talk about continuous integration and continuous delivery pipelines, or CI/CD. Think of CI/CD as the metronome and sheet music for our orchestra. It ensures every individual musician, every microservice team, practices their part consistently, integrates it seamlessly, and deploys their module with precision. Automated testing catches missteps early, preventing a small error from becoming a symphony-wide cacophony. This consistent, automated rhythm dramatically boosts team velocity and, crucially, their confidence in making changes. No more agonizing over deployments. They become routine, predictable, and fast. But even with a perfectly rehearsed piece, a conductor needs to hear if everything is going to plan. That's where monitoring, logging, and distributed tracing, the pillars of observability, become your eyes and ears as a team lead. In a microservices landscape, where issues can hide across many services, you need comprehensive visibility. I've seen teams stumble for days trying to diagnose a problem that, with proper tracing, would have been identified in minutes. Centralized logging aggregates all service output, metrics give you real-time performance indicators, and tracing shows you the journey of a single request across multiple services. This isn't just about spotting failures. It's about understanding system behavior and proactively optimizing performance before users even notice a hiccup. You might be thinking, this sounds like a lot of data, and it is. But the right tools make it actionable. Now, as the orchestra grows, ensuring harmonious communication between every instrument becomes a challenge. Do you really want each musician to worry about how they connect to every other? That's where service meshes and API gateways step in. An API gateway acts as your front-of-house manager, handling external requests, routing them to the right internal services, and even aggregating responses. A service mesh, on the other hand, is like the stage manager, handling all the complex internal traffic between your microservices. It provides critical capabilities like traffic management, routing requests, load balancing, implementing circuit breakers to prevent cascading failures,
and even enforces security policies without developers writing a single line of application code for these concerns. This frees your teams to focus purely on the business logic, confident that the underlying network communication is resilient and well managed, much like a conductor trusts the stage crew to handle the complex logistics so they can focus on the music.
Equipping your teams with this powerful ecosystem of tools, from automation to observability to intelligent communication layers, isn't just about adopting new tech. It's about empowering them to become a high-performing orchestra, building incredibly complex, yet resilient and adaptable systems. Next, we'll dive into how to measure that performance and ensure your microservices journey is truly impactful.
All right, we've equipped our team with the right tools. Now, as a team lead, how do we know if our microservices adoption is truly paying off? It's not enough to just ship code. We need to understand the impact, the efficiency, and the overall health of our system and our team. Think of it this way. Just as a symphony conductor doesn't simply wave a baton but constantly listens, observes, and interprets the performance of each musician to ensure harmony, we too need a scorecard for our microservices orchestra. We're moving beyond mere outputs to focusing on measurable outcomes that reflect true business value. This means establishing clear, shared objectives that everyone on the team understands and contributes to.
You might be thinking, another set of metrics?
But these aren't just vanity metrics. These are your compasses. We're talking about key performance indicators directly tied to project success and delivery. Think about metrics like deployment frequency. How often can we reliably release new features? Or lead time for changes? How quickly does a new commit go from development to production? Critically, we also look at change failure rate. What percentage of our deployments introduce issues? And, when things do go wrong, what's our mean time to recovery? Or MTTR? These tell a compelling story about agility and reliability.
Beyond project delivery, we need to monitor team effectiveness and system stability.
This includes metrics like team velocity and predictability. Not to micromanage, but to identify bottlenecks and foster flow. We also keenly track service uptime and performance, ensuring our individual microservices are consistently delivering. In real systems, this shows up when a team observes a spike in latency for a specific microservice. Instead of a frantic, all-hands-on-deck crisis, clear KPIs allow us to pinpoint the problem domain, empower the owning team to address it swiftly, and then measure their mean time to repair, directly impacting overall system health and customer experience. It's about correlating team effort with concrete system outcomes.
Remember, these KPIs aren't static.
They're living instruments that need regular review and adjustment as your system and team evolve. Foster a culture where data is used for learning and informed decision-making, not for blame. It's about continuous improvement, always tuning our orchestra for peak performance. But even with the best metrics, there are always hidden snags we need to look out for. So next, let's explore some common pitfalls. We've just explored how to measure success, but let's be honest. The path to microservices isn't always smooth sailing. Many teams, despite their best intentions, stumble into common pitfalls that can undermine their efforts and lead to more pain than gain. As a team lead, spotting these early and knowing how to steer clear is crucial. Let's dig into some of the biggest challenges and, more importantly, how to navigate them effectively. First up, let's talk about the phantom limb of the monolith. Distributed transactions. It's tempting to try and replicate the ACID guarantees you had in a single database across multiple services. You might be thinking, but how do I ensure everything is consistent if I break it all apart? This often leads to over-engineering complex two-phase commits or intricate Saga patterns.
This is where many teams get bogged down. Remember our central analogy, an orchestra. A conductor doesn't wait for every single musician to perfectly synchronize on every micronote before moving on. Instead, each section plays its part, trusting the overall harmony to emerge. Similarly, in microservices, pushing for strict global consistency on every interaction can stifle agility. The solution often lies in embracing eventual consistency and designing your business processes to be resilient to temporary inconsistencies, using practical compensation patterns when needed.
Then there's the operational hellscape. That often gets mentioned. More services mean more things to deploy, monitor, and manage. In real systems, this shows up when a simple bug fix requires updating 3 different repositories, deploying 5 separate services, and then debugging logs across a dozen containers in a Kubernetes cluster you barely understand. Suddenly, your promised agility becomes a deployment nightmare. This service sprawls, especially without robust automation, can quickly overwhelm your operations team. The key here is ruthless automation. From CI/CD pipelines to infrastructure as code, invest heavily in centralized observability, robust logging, metrics, and tracing, so you can see what each part of your system is doing, just as a conductor needs to hear every instrument. And ensure clear service ownership. Don't let services become orphaned. Finally, a major pitfall I consistently see is the struggle with defining correct service boundaries and combating organizational silos. If your services are too tightly coupled, changing one means changing many, negating the very benefit of independent deployment. This often stems from a lack of deep domain understanding at the outset. Similarly, if your teams become completely isolated, without shared knowledge or overarching communication, you're building isolated islands, not a cohesive ecosystem. This impacts everything, from shared libraries to consistent API contracts. By understanding these common traps, from transaction complexity to operational burdens and blurred boundaries, you can proactively architect for resilience. But beyond the technical, there's another crucial layer: the culture of your team. And that's exactly what we'll dive into next. Cultivating an agile microservices culture. We've navigated the tricky waters of microservices pitfalls in our last discussion, but simply avoiding mistakes isn't enough. The true secret to resilience lies in actively cultivating a culture where microservices don't just survive, but thrive. As a team lead, you're essentially the conductor of your own technical orchestra. Your role isn't just about assigning tasks. It's about ensuring every musician, every team member, understands the symphony they're creating. This means fostering a shared vision for the overall system. Without this clear, overarching understanding, individual services, no matter how well built, risk becoming discordant. We need to move beyond just code to align on purpose and impact.
But a conductor doesn't play every instrument. They empower each section to master their part. Similarly, in microservices, true resilience comes from empowering teams with domain ownership. Each team should feel a deep sense of responsibility for their specific service module, from development to operations. You might be thinking, doesn't that create silos? Not if done right. This isn't about isolation. It's about focused expertise, where each team is accountable for the health and evolution of their component. I've seen teams struggle when boundaries are fuzzy, leading to finger-pointing during incidents. But when a team truly owns their service, they invest in its quality, its observability, and its resilience. Because its success directly reflects on them, they become the true experts. To support this ownership, we need a culture of continuous learning and growth. The microservices landscape evolves rapidly, and so must our teams. This isn't just about formal training. It's about creating psychological safety for experimentation and learning from failure. Blameless postmortems become critical here. They transform outages from blame games into collective learning opportunities. Regular knowledge-sharing sessions, internal tech talks, and even pairing across service boundaries can significantly accelerate collective intelligence. It's like musicians regularly rehearsing difficult pieces together, learning from each other's techniques to improve the overall performance. Finally, cultivating a resilient microservices culture means treating your team culture itself as a system that needs continuous feedback and iteration. Just as we monitor our services, we need to gauge our team's health. Are teams feeling empowered? Are communication lines clear? Are adoption metrics moving in the right direction? This involves regular retrospectives, feedback surveys, and one-on-ones, explicitly discussing cultural aspects of microservices adoption. What worked last quarter might not work this quarter. A thriving microservices environment isn't a destination. It's an ongoing journey of adaptation, learning, and refinement. It demands an agile mindset, not just in our code, but in how we lead and grow our people. As you guide your teams through this evolution, remember that the right culture is your strongest foundation. But how do we then concretely check our understanding and apply these principles? In our next segment, we'll put your knowledge to the test and explore avenues for deeper learning. Alright team,
We've covered a lot of ground today, from understanding microservices to cultivating the right culture. It's like we've been rehearsing a complex symphony, learning each section, each instrument's role, and how they all combine. Now, let's test our collective understanding with a scenario. Imagine your existing application, a monolithic system, is frequently experiencing slowdowns during peak user traffic. Deployment cycles are slow, taking weeks, and a single bug in one module often brings down the entire service. You're a team lead, tasked with improving resilience and development velocity. Given this situation, what would be your immediate next step as a team lead considering microservices? You might be thinking, this sounds exactly like my Monday morning. Take a moment to reflect on that. There's no single right answer, but the journey to understanding why you'd choose microservices is crucial. For further exploration, I strongly encourage you to discuss this scenario with your own teams. Challenge each other. Delve deeper into defining precise service boundaries. A critical piece, much like ensuring each musician knows their specific part without stepping on another's. Explore advanced topics like distributed tracing, event-driven architectures, or even the often debated domain-driven design. These are where the true mastery of our microservices symphony really begins. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into building resilient systems. If you found this playbook helpful, please hit that like button and share your biggest takeaway or your own team's challenges in the comments below. I genuinely read every single one. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon for more practical guides. And for the full, in-depth playbook, check out the link in the description. Keep building those resilient systems.